Hello and welcome to the Eardley Bird Business Podcast. On today's episode, I have Taq. She's a great person, really interesting conversation that we do have. We talk about the actual honest, sort of realistic side behind running the business and owning the business. So I think you'll get a lot of good stuff out of this. We also dive into things like marketing, sales, tech within the business. So there should be some good stuff in there for you guys. Thanks for watching. So, hi Taq, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. So what I'd like to discuss straight away is more about you, a bit more about your business, just so we got a bit more of an idea of your background. So yeah, I was wondering if we could start there.
Yeah, so I don't know how far back you want me to go, but essentially I have been in recruitment now for nearly 9 years. And it's a mixed bag in terms of my background, but I'll come back to that in a second. I used to actually be fun but uninteresting fact. I used to actually be in law for many, many years until about 2016. I used to be in law. Decided I didn't love it anymore. It's all I'd ever known, so it was really difficult, but I did decide to completely change my career. I went into recruitment by complete accident, like most people, in 2016. Joined a recruitment agency for about 10 months. Didn't like it at all. I loved recruitment, but I didn't love the agency side of recruitment. Sure. But I wasn't sure if it was a really small firm, so I wasn't sure if that was the problem. And then I moved over to a global firm, realised that that's no different, no better. So I thought, I don't think agency's for me. I'm just not cutthroat enough.
Yeah.
So I went into internal recruitment in 2017. And unfortunately in 2020, because of COVID, I was made redundant. And I went through the whole process like most job seekers do, looking for a job, struggling. It was a really bad time in the job market. Finally, and I'm sure we'll come back to it in a second, for a number of reasons, decided that I wanted to start my own business in recruitment strategy and transformation. Which is a bit of a mouthful, and I'm not sure if you've even heard of that before. I kind of made it up. I'm not going to lie. I made the job up completely. But I wanted to help businesses improve the way that they attract, hire and retain talent without using overly using agencies.
Sure.
So I wanted to really transform the recruitment experience going off of my own kind of job seeking experience as a candidate. And I've been doing that now since officially launched in 21. So I've been doing that now for 3.5, nearly 4 years. And that brings me to the current day.
Perfect. So when you work with your clients then, what typically would you be doing? How would that look?
So my ideal scenario would be a company, whether it's a startup company or a SME type company. It would be a company that is looking to hire people with or without a recruitment team, preferably without, or not preferably, but usually it's without a recruitment team. And they are spending too much on recruitment agencies and they're looking to reduce their costs without compromising on the quality of talent that they're getting. So I will go into these types of companies and help them build out a hiring process, both from a technical standpoint, from a personal standpoint, from a business objective standpoint, just completely kind of rehash the hiring model that they have, redefining, or even just kind of redefining what they have, or even just chucking out what they've got and starting all over again.
Sure.
I think too many companies, especially in the last few years, given what's gone on in the job market, have started to use recruitment agencies as a default position. But then they complain about the quality of talent. They complain about the relationship they have with agencies. They complain about the fact that they use recruitment agencies. They complain about the cost. When actually, in my opinion, if you go back to basics and you strip everything back and you go back to your own internal process, the chances are, if you have a good process, you won't need to use agencies so much. I've been doing this now for, as I said, 3.5, going on to 4 years, and that's essentially what I do. Is I will go in, redefine their process, improve, strip back, train up their hiring managers, train up their recruiters, typically recruit for them at the same time, all with the objective of reducing their agency cost. So that's kind of my mission. That's
Sure.
what I've been doing. And kind of that's, in a very small nutshell, that's how I do it, is focusing on the hiring process and making it as simplified but effective as possible.
Sure. And you mentioned retaining talent as well. Do you do anything with them after they've got the talent?
Yeah. So with a few clients, they will need help with the onboarding as well. So some companies they think that recruitment starts with we need somebody and stops with we found somebody. But actually there's a whole body of work to do after that, because attracting is difficult, hiring can be challenging, but retaining people is probably one of the hardest things we've seen in the last few years.
Yeah.
And so I have helped multiple companies like improve their onboarding process, whether
Sure.
that is on a shoestring, on a budget. Not all companies have got, a massive budget where they can do the all singing, all dancing, red carpet treatment, but it doesn't have to be like that. Again, just a simple, manageable, sustainable process. But yeah, retention is definitely a key area of what I do. And it could be anything from the onboarding to the actual establishment of their employment within a company. So
Sure.
how do you keep in touch with them? What should those first 3 months look like? What should that training period look like? How can we get the best out of them in the probation period? How can we make sure that they pass the probation period? How can we make sure that we're kind of, we keep engaged with them and they're still excited as they were on the first day or the day they accepted the job? All of these things. There's a lot of moving parts in kind of the retention model, but yes, that is a huge part of what I do as well. I think it would be remiss of me to do the attraction and the hiring and leave the retention, because that, like I say, I think is probably the biggest issue for a lot of companies. If they're not making people redundant, they're losing people because something's not connecting anymore. So it's helping them see what that is and improving on that.
Yeah, and I guess there is a lot of companies out there that will pay a lot in terms of recruitment fees, getting people in, and then completely ignore the next step, which is actually onboarding them right and actually training them properly. So yeah, I completely get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
So obviously it's a fairly newish business. You've been doing it, was that 3 or 4 years now? Is that? Yeah.
That's
so it's
right.
not new, I wouldn't say, but it's just somewhat established now.
I'm going to still say it's quite new because I'm still learning so much, not just about the industry, because the industry is ever evolving, recruitment. It's constantly moving, it's constantly evolving, and keeping up with that can be a challenge in itself. But just learning how to run a business. Running a business, you get some people that are like, I wanted to run a business since I was like a toddler and I was selling lemonade in a school.
Yeah.
I was not that person. I never wanted to run my own business. And so this has been, I would still say I'm quite new to this. Some people would say 3-4 years is not new. But in the grand scheme of things, I personally think it's still new in the sense that I don't have everything figured out. I'm not sure if anybody ever does, but yes, I still consider myself as new to this game.
Yeah. And how have those first 3 years gone? That's a big question. It has
been, honestly, I'm going to be really honest with you now, and really transparent. So you can go wherever you want with this, because I think it's really important to talk about business as a whole view. Some people focus on the positives. Some people focus on the highs and the money and all the money that they're making and the success and everything. Not many people talk about the lows and the challenges and the struggles. And I think that's my favorite part to talk about, actually, because not enough people talk about it. So here's a little bit of a snapshot into my journey, right? So first year, over the first 6 months, was really just connecting with people, meeting new people, learning how to use social media, because that's how I get a lot of my business. Learning how to use social media, learning how to network with people, because that's not something everybody knows how to do.
Yeah.
Networking with people this is how you and I met, is through a networking event, right? So networking with people, learning how to do that, learning how to connect with people, learning how to sell your business. That's what I spent the first 6 months doing. And I went all in on that. And I'm glad that I did, because that's how I got a large portion of my work. Within about 3 months of being on social media and just giving it everything that I had, I started to see the results, which was brilliant. I started to see leads coming in through the DMs. I started to see interesting conversations through the comments, and then flourishing into something great. That's all wonderful. My first proper year of business was 2022. My first proper like year of training was 2022, and it was phenomenal. It was more than I could have expected. Everybody says the first year is really difficult and whatnot. And that's what I was kind of gearing myself up for, but it was the complete opposite for me. But I think there were a number of factors in my favour. So I'd been made redundant from a job where I had a lot of friends who were also moved on to other positions or also made redundant. And so they took my name with them.
Sure.
So I got a lot of referral business, which was excellent and really great to hear that people kind of rate you in that way. I had got a lot of referral work. I'd got a lot of recommendations. So even if they didn't need me, we know somebody who can help you with that. You know, connect with her on LinkedIn. So there was that, and then there was obviously through the organic way of DMing people and creating these new relationships through your network. That was amazing the first year, and I made a ton of money, and it was really successful. And everything that the ideas that I had. There was nothing savvy about it. There was nothing slick or smart about my process. I didn't have fancy systems or computers or anything like that. It was just my brain, my ideas, my knowledge and my expertise that I would take into businesses. And all of that was hugely successful. I had multiple clients in the first year of business. I probably made, I don't know, like, I don't love putting a number on it because I think it's a little bit crass, but I'm going to, because I've said that I'm going to be transparent. So in the first year, I reckon I made about 80 to 90,000 in my first year, which was phenomenal, right? However, during that first year and a half, and I'd done really well with my clients. I'd saved all of them lots and lots of money, so they could see the value. You know, you had 3-month contracts that ended up being 18-month contracts. I had one-off contracts that ended up becoming retainers, things like that, right? So you could see things working. Then in 2020, towards the end of 22, 23, I had a lot of upheaval in my personal life. My nan was really poorly, there were other things going on, and I became really distracted. I had all these clients and I was making money, it was wonderful, but I took my eye off of marketing and sales. And when those contracts all came to a natural end, I was in a real pickle because I had nothing coming in. And when I say nothing, I don't mean a couple of quid here, a couple of quid there. I was making 2,000 here. 2,000 is a lot of money. I was not making anything because I had completely taken my eye off of marketing and sales. And so I went a good few months in that state. And so I got back into marketing and sales because I wasn't posting anything on LinkedIn. I wasn't connecting with anyone. And so I'd fallen out of people's minds at this point. And everything that came my way, all of the benefits and advantages that I had in my first year, they ran out, right? All of those cashed in favors, there was no more of those. Now it was just on me to build. So I went back to square one and I did that all over again. And then, you know, won some clients, made some more money. And then that took us into 24, which was probably the hardest year of my business. Everything from financially, mentally, emotionally. It was really, really challenging, not just for me as well, like even in the job market, recruiters were just going through a really difficult time, still are. Got to the middle of 24 and just before I met you, and I decided to invest in a program that was going to teach me really how to maximize marketing and sales and content strategy and all of the things that I hadn't figured out because everything that I'd won so far was potluck. So I met with somebody and he's got this amazing program. Program's called C2C. Guy who runs it is called Chris James. Brilliant investment that I had made to teach me how to create a content strategy, how to market, how to sell, how to define your offer, and all of these things that I'd never really done before. I just fluked it and got lucky. But this was the year that I wanted to nail down everything. And so I did that in June, July of September 24. But it got towards the end of the year and I can't tell you, I had burnt myself out. Got to about November and I put a post out about it on LinkedIn, just saying like, I'm done. Like I have got nothing else to give for the next few weeks. Thank God for Christmas holidays and New Year's holidays. Could not honestly have come at a better time. But I had to be really honest with people because they have this perception of me and other people like me because I'm, you know, fun and I'm engaging and, you know, put out a lot of content that She's got her shit sorted, but it's just not like that. And I needed people to know towards the end of the year, whilst you're all saying, I had a great year. Did you though? Like, it's okay to say you didn't, because, and I'll go first. I did not have a good year in every way imaginable. It was really challenging. And I realised that I'd burnt out. And I don't use that word loosely. I genuinely mean I burnt out. I'd spoken to a few burnout experts just to make sure, like, am I imagining this, or is this what's happened? But a lot of like physical, emotional and psychological symptoms started to manifest. I was a mess by November. And in December, I decided, do you know what? There's nothing else that I can give, and there's nothing I think I'm going to get. So I'm going to contact all of my leads and just park them for the new year. They don't need to know what's happened, but I was really open about it on LinkedIn. And so I took a step back. And it was a real conflict for me, because I've worked so hard and I had this goal that I wanted to achieve so much by the end of 24. And now I'm like completely taking my foot off the gas. Like, this just didn't make sense to me. But also I'd burnt out so much, nothing was making sense to me. So it got to the holidays and I promised myself, like, I'll take my laptop as just a matter of course, because that was like, I think if I didn't take my laptop with me, I went up to Scotland to go and see my family for New Year's. If I didn't take my laptop with me, I think I would have panicked. I just needed it there with me, but I didn't open it, and I barely posted on LinkedIn. I was completely absent. I just completely took myself off the grid, and it was the best thing that I could have done for myself. And everything that burnout stops you from feeling just came over me, and I just kind of allowed myself to, just kind of be knocked down, cry if you need to cry, eat if you need to eat, go out if you need to go out, stay in if you want to stay in, just let it all happen. And that 2 weeks was a godsend. And that takes me to like the current day. And I'm not going to lie, like 24 was a really challenging year. I don't know what 25 has got in store with me. For me, I genuinely don't know. But I do know that I have kind of refilled my cup and I'm ready to go again. And, it's this business and this idea. I've helped so many companies save so much money. I know it works. And so there's something in me that just will not allow me to give up. A great set of people around me to help me and keep me propped up and whatnot. So, you go again. We move. But that's a really honest, transparent view of what my journey has been like. It's been, if I was to describe it in one sentence, it would be the highest highs and the lowest lows. And I think if anybody's listening to this, that's thinking about starting a business or has gone through something like that, or is at the high point or even at the low point, I would say, like, you're not alone. And if you're thinking about going into business, like, be prepared for, periods like that where it's going to be the complete opposite of what you've just come out of, in a good way or a bad way. Be prepared. And that's not something that I was ever prepared for. Nobody ever tells you this part, which is why I'm so adamant to be open about it. Doesn't make you a weak business owner. It just makes it real. That's just real. It is.
I think a lot of people talk about the pros of running a business without the potential hard work and the negatives that are all involved with doing that, especially with goals. I was listening to another podcast recently. He was talking about goals where you set yourself, and if you don't hit them by a certain day, you sort of beat yourself up and you're like, oh, what am I doing with my life? And it just needs that reframe of saying, you can aim for that goal at that date, but if you don't hit it, if it takes you an extra 3 months, don't sweat it and just take the extra 3 months. I think a lot more people need that, especially with running businesses. I think it's like, don't beat yourself up if you're moving in the right direction. Just if it's going to take you an extra couple of months, then it takes you there.
And I think that's a really great way to look at it. And I have a real issue with things like New Year's resolutions and goals, because if I set myself a goal at the beginning of January 24 or even July 24, like I did, so much happened in those last 6 months that I could not have ever expected. So many curveballs had happened. And so it's not because I didn't achieve my goals, not because I didn't work hard enough, it's because I was thrown off course. And so when we create goals or resolutions for ourselves, what we tend to do is we create this, so like, I want to achieve this, I want to do this, and I want to do that, and I want to do it by this date. And that's great if that's what gets you going. It doesn't do it for me. I've never done it, and I've tried it because everybody else was doing it. And then I was like, this just doesn't, my brain is not wired this way. Because the reason why is because when you don't achieve those things, because life happens, it's not your fault, life happens, then where does that leave you? What does that mean that you've not achieved? Does that mean that you've not accomplished anything? Does that mean that you're a failure? And so I don't like the idea of setting such rigid goals with such rigid dates. I think you can have a vision and you can have aspirations that you should work towards. But I think ultimately it is, like for me, one of the things that I've done is every single day, and it's so bite-sized, it's so granular, but it's still achievement. So every single day I want to do at least one thing that moves my business forward. I don't care what it is. I don't care how big it is. I don't care how small. It doesn't have to be anything earth-shattering, just something that moves the business forward, whether it is posting content, batch creating content, filming, Instagram, changing my about section on LinkedIn, DMing 20 people, responding to everyone, ticking a whole task off my list, just one thing every single day that moves the business forward. Because I do think that we need to lean more into the compound effect of having goals rather than, I've got this goal, I want to achieve it, and if I don't, I failed. I just think that's such a recipe for disaster when life is so unpredictable at the moment. That's my opinion on goals and resolutions. I don't care to have them at all. I don't believe in them.
I guess if you're checking off your tasks and being consistent with them, I think naturally it's just going to push you in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly.
Another thing that I saw about New Year's resolutions is, again, most people give up on them and feel guilty about it. Whereas I think it was on the Secret Leaders podcast, they were talking about this, and they're saying, actually, if you pick a word that you want to stick to reflect what you want to achieve, it's much better. You can just kind of, surround yourself with that word for the year. So I've picked consistency for me. So it's a lot like what you're saying there, where you just want to consistently check something off the list. It's something you can do every day, and you don't feel like you're missing the mark if you're not doing everything under the sun all at once. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think rather than having set goals, is I think having an idea that you want to work towards. Like by the end of the year, I want to be this kind of business owner, this kind of leader, this kind of person, and everything that you need to work towards. You can make a list of all the things you need to do to get yourself to that point. But to say I want to have 500,000 followers by June. Okay, well, what if I get to June and I've only got 100,000 followers? Where does that leave me? Does that mean that goal hasn't been achieved? Because 100,000 is still pretty good, But we won't think it's good because we didn't achieve what we set out to achieve. And that's the part that I don't buy into. And this is why I wanted to do goals, resolutions, or whatever we want to call them. Goals is what I suppose we should. That's why I wanted to do goals in my own way this year. I'm not falling into this trap of what everybody else is doing. And I also don't want to reflect on 2024 as an absolute washout, because there was so much that was so great about it. But because I didn't achieve what I wanted to achieve, I felt like such a failure by December. I felt like I wasn't, fit to call myself a business owner. I didn't feel worthy. I just thought, if I just lied for the last 4 years, because look at this pickle that I'm in. And then it was only when I took that break and that time out, I thought, look at everything that you have achieved. You've achieved great things. I got my first speaking gig. I was up on stage with people who have been in the industry for a while. And that's something that I never expected. I networked, I've made loads of new friends. I've got out there. I've taken the business from here to here. Because they weren't goals, I didn't consider them as achievements. And I think that's the pitfall that I don't want to get into.
So moving forward then, looking into 2025, what we're changing, what we're doing differently, what's going to allow you to check? I know we've sort of talked about doing the daily tasks. Is there anything specific that you're doing this year?
Yeah, so I think going off of how I worked in 2024, I don't regret it. I think it was a lesson learned. But I think now 2025 is going to be a completely different looking year. It's not going to be the opposite. It's just going to be completely different. And I want to define or refine rather my work style, which has been terrible for the longest time. It's little things like I don't have, this is my office. It's a pretty small room, I could sit here for hours on end and not move. It's not great. So I want to change my work style. I want to get out more. I want to sit in a co-working space for a few days a week. I want to meet more people. I want to have more conversations. I'm going to push for, face-to-face meetings and stuff like that. I have been for the last 4 years in my own company for so long, which is great because I love my own company. But I have been in my own company for so long that I think that had a lot to do with why I burnt out last year. And so 2025 is going to be the year that I completely change my work style for sure. And I just want to tone down the pressure that I put on myself. I want to work smarter. So I know that we're going to cover this in a second, but I want to do more with like system improvements and efficiency and things like that. Because again, as I said before, I've never been somebody with all singing, all dancing systems and processes and fancy software. I've just always used my brain and that's it. Old school Excel, pad and pen, which has always worked for me. But I think I need to lean into technology a little bit more for 2025. So work style and making my life easier in whichever way I can, making my life easier and not having to trudge through the year like I did last year. I want to make it as easy as possible for myself to do this because it's hard enough as it is. Don't need to make it any harder.
I mean, I agree with both of them. I think, first of all, work style, I think having that social interaction face-to-face can only help mentally for sure. Just meeting
I'm
people,
so jealous that you're in an office right now.
I actually love being in an office. It's one of my favorite things. I like speaking to people. During lockdown, when it was just on me and my own in the house, I was just like, this is a bit boring.
Yeah.
But I like meeting people. And having systems and processes and using tech to make your life easier, so you don't have to use your brain for those sort of things and use it for things that's going to drive the business forward. I think that only can help progress things forward. So I think they're two good ideas. I think the stuff that you learned from last year, the stuff that you're trying to improve on, what would they be? Is it to do with those two things, or is there anything else?
I think I need to diversify as well. So I've had this one goal when I first started the business, and it was from my experience as a redundancy candidate, or as a redundancy survivor, as I call it. And so I came up with this idea that I want to help businesses improve how they hire. And that's literally all my service has been ever since day one. But I want to also this year, and I think when my mind is a bit healthier and I've got these other things, like my life is made easier with the tech and I figure out this work style and all of that, I think I've got some ideas, but I think what I will also want to do is diversify the business. So rather than just focusing on the hiring process, improving that for businesses, there's a lot of businesses that probably think, don't really need help with everything. I only need, we're only terrible at this one thing. But because I have this fully kitted out bells and whistles service, it might be isolating them a little bit. So I want to have small, offshoot services where I can help businesses improve, one or two mini elements of their hiring process.
Right.
So
a bit more like a pick and mix style.
Exactly. I always say pick and mix. Yeah, exactly. So that's definitely how it's going to be. So I'll have an overarching service where if you want the full bells and whistles, this is what I can do. And I've got case studies for that. And I've created, or in the middle of creating, refining, because I've been doing it for a few months now, employee engagement workshops with leaders where I go into the business and kind of teach them about real employee engagement. And then I also want to do, and I've toyed with this for so long, until somebody said to me a few weeks ago, you would be the perfect person to do this, is talking about diversity, equity and inclusion in the workplace, but really focusing on unconscious biases, not just for the hiring process, but also for the onboarding and the kind of first few months of somebody's employment, is really understanding what that looks like. Because I think it's starting to fall by the wayside, and I think we're now in a time where people are so afraid to ask questions or say the wrong thing or get it wrong somehow, that they're a bit like, let's just not do it. Let's just try not to make any mistakes, but let's also just not have the conversation. They're just too afraid. Yeah, but I'm the one person that you could say something to and I won't be offended. So I think capitalizing and making the most out of that, my lived experiences as a Muslim, British, brown woman makes sense for me to say, right, let me come in and help you understand what my journey's been like and help you kind of improve your, whether it's employee engagement or whatever the case might be, just improve your kind of strategy towards that. So these are the two things that I've got, I want to work on, is the retention, so employee engagement, but also diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I kind of want to start padding out services rather than just having this one signature service. That's another slightly bigger, kind of juicier goal that I have for 2025.
Yeah, no, I completely get that. And I think that definitely will help, because I suppose if you're speaking to some businesses, like you said, if they don't want all of it, and then they can't have any of it, right?
Yes,
so if you can make it more accessible for everybody, I think that will help. Next thing I want to talk about is marketing, right?
Yes.
And getting into the weeds of what you do and how you go about getting clients. We can also discuss things like sales and that sort of stuff as well. But let's start with your marketing process. What do you do in order to get clients in the first place?
So content is the biggest part of my marketing strategy. So it's really putting content out there on LinkedIn. I've started with Instagram and TikTok as well now. I've never done Instagram and TikTok on a serious note before, but I've started to lean into it now, just because, again, coming back to what I was saying before about like tech, for example, I've always thought, I don't need it. I've got a pad and a pen. Why download a piece of software and learn how to use it? Just jot it down. It's one of those where, why do I need it? I've got LinkedIn. Well, it's to just diversify my audience. It's to reach out to more people. And also, LinkedIn could kick me off one day. So it's really just protecting myself. So content is a huge part of my marketing strategy. So really understanding what my ideal client looks like, who they are, what their business might look like, what their problems might look like, what their bespoke solutions might look like, because everything I do is bespoke, and really creating content on those specific issues or specific topics. And I do that, don't know how much detail you want me to go into, but I do that at least twice a week, where I focus specifically on my ideal client. I'm not looking for, loads of new followers. I'm not looking for, huge engagement. I'm looking to just have practically a one-on-one conversation with my ideal client. I do that a couple of days a week. And then Mondays I tend to ease my way in. Like, nobody wants to talk about work a great deal, but I'll talk a little bit about maybe thoughts I've had over the weekend or something like that. Tuesday is, a little bit more focused. Wednesday is a little bit more fluid between the two. Thursday, again, is really focused. And then Friday is just for fun. I don't talk too much. It's Fridays is just for jokes and funs and laughs and stuff. And then Saturday is set for job seeker, like advice for job seekers, because I don't leave them out. Sunday is a day of rest. So my content and creating content and my content strategy is a huge part of my marketing. And that's across all of these platforms. That's a huge part of it. The other part of it is engagement and networking, meeting new people, having conversations, whether it's starting conversations or continuing conversations in the DMs, off the DMs, putting myself out there and saying, let's have a chat, let's have a coffee, or, online or whatever. Or even like if somebody's not far away, I will suggest like, let's go for a, lunch or dinner or whatever. I never used to do that. Never ever used to do that. But really taking full advantage of networking and meeting new people wherever I possibly can. If there's an event, I'll go. If, there's somebody in the comment section or engagement of somebody else's post, I'll connect with them and strike up a conversation. So I've really started to hone in on that in the last 6 months as well, just really trying to up my marketing and sales game. And the sales part, and I know that you were asking me about marketing, but just as a quick kind of comment on the sales part, it's not like a sleazy sales process. It's almost like an extension of marketing. And then, naturally this conversation, again, like, how you and I met, we met in a fairly formal setting in the sense that it was a networking event for business, for people in business, but it wasn't, it wasn't a stuffy business type conversation, that you and I had. Exactly how you and I met is what I want to do more of, just like, we didn't get a chance to meet. Let's jump on a call and let's have a quick chat. And now we're doing a podcast together.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my marketing strategy. It's nothing over the top. It's
Mm-hmm.
nothing fancy, and it's nothing super technical, because I'm still learning a lot, and so I want to take it in my pace. And I think what I'm doing at the moment, my following is good, my engagement is good. I get leads, I have conversations, meaningful conversations with great companies. Sometimes it goes somewhere, sometimes it doesn't, but it still gives you that connection. And that's my marketing strategy, and that's kind of where I'm at the moment. I'm sure there's a lot more that I could be doing, but that's my kind of strategy at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I have a few thoughts. The first thing is, I had Grace Hardy on recently on the podcast, and she talks about how she gets like 90% of her clients on TikTok. So TikTok is definitely a route. It's obviously a different style of client than you potentially would get on LinkedIn, but definitely worth a try and see what type of people you can meet on there. The other question I have is around, do you do anything with emails? Do you have a newsletter or anything like that?
No, I don't have any. Like, I've toyed with newsletters and stuff, but because my ideal client is CEOs and MDs and people like that, if I was a CEO, like when I was a recruiter or a recruitment manager, I wouldn't have paid like smidge of attention to like a newsletter that came in. I'd just be like, I ain't got time for this, just delete it. And so that's the reason why I haven't done one. I could easily do one for like job seekers. They would probably love it. But I've stopped working with job seekers in 2024 just because the duality of my services, it was too much and it just didn't make sense. And it got confusing for people to really understand what I do. So I stopped that. So I have thought about it, but I haven't leaned into it just yet. I think I need to figure it out in my mind, who it's going to serve and what could I possibly tell them on a regular basis that's going to engage them and connect with them. I don't know if you have thoughts on that, by the way.
I think my thought process behind mentioning it was, one thing you mentioned was actually perfect, because you said, I don't want, if I get banned on LinkedIn, I'm kind of screwed essentially. So you lose all of your followers and the people that engage with you. So it might be a way of pulling some of those people. It won't be everyone. Not every CEO or boss of a company wants to look at a newsletter. But if there was something small, bite-sized that got across something that's helpful for them, then I'm sure they might. So I like how you're diversifying. That could be one area that you could potentially diversify more. And then obviously I like the personal connection side of thing. I think people are craving more personal connections and networking, that sort of stuff. So I think that's obviously going to help push things forward for you. So I think that's all a good route. So if you're in a conversation with someone, let's look at the sales side. You mentioned it's not a sleazy sales process, which I love. I think people don't want that, especially from recruiters. I'd say they're probably used to getting hit up like multiple times a day by a recruiter. So yes, I think that's absolutely the right way of going. But how would it typically look? Would they come to you, or would you approach them? How does that look?
Both. Yeah, so it's both. I 100% of my business has come from LinkedIn, whether it's been referrals, recommendation. Actually, I shouldn't say 100% because some of it is people that I used to work with, but most of my work has come from LinkedIn. And it's a mixed bag of people contacting me off the back of either content that I've put out or engagements, or maybe a comment that I've put out on somebody else's post.
Okay.
Or it's been when I've reached out to somebody. Now, when I reach out to somebody, I can't remember how you and I first... Actually, did I message you or did you message me? I can't remember. But it goes a bit like that, where it's just, hi, didn't get a chance to meet you, because I think I messaged you because I saw your name on the list. Yeah. And I remember seeing you at the event, literally, like we were right next to each other, but I think you were leaving. Right. I had no idea who you were or anything, but when I saw your picture, I was like, oh no, that's the guy who was literally stood right next to me. And so I shot you a message basically saying, hi, Oliver. I was at the London Collective event. We didn't get a chance to meet. Hope you had a great time. And it's along those lines. That is it. It's all my first DM is. It could even be somebody who's connected with me or somebody who has accepted my connection request. Hi, insert name. Great to be connected. How's your day going? Usually it's a joke because I hate it when people say that. How's your day going? Well, it's all right. But I'll put something humorous because I just love to, I think that's the best way to start a conversation anyway. I'll, on a scale of 1 to 10, tell me how your day is going, 1 being absolutely pants on fire and 10 being too good to be true. And everybody responds to that because everybody's on a scale of 1 to 10. And the conversation just organically goes from there. Now, some people might say, I'm having a great day, cheers, good to be connected, see you later. Or you'll get people who are like, oh my God, I'm having an absolute 4 today. And I'm like, oh, why, what's happening, blah, blah, blah. And then the conversation goes on. And then eventually it will be, tell me what you do. Oh, tell me what you do. Oh, that's interesting. And then the conversation organically goes in that direction. Not always, because not everybody needs what you have to sell. And not everybody is in that frame of mind to buy or to hear what you're selling. Even though I'm not selling anything, I'm just telling them what I do for a living. But because what I do for a living is slightly different to a recruitment agency, a lot of people tend to be like, oh, that's interesting, that's different. And surprisingly, I've had great conversations off the back of conversations starting so randomly in the DMs. Rather than going in saying, hi, Oliver, my name's Taq, and I am a recruitment strategist, and this is what I do, and this is what I do, and this is how I save money. Are you interested? Oh, would you respond to that? I wouldn't respond to that. I'd just feel like I wouldn't even get to the end of it. I'd just be like, no, thanks.
I think the immediate... I think you can obviously have a sales approach within LinkedIn because it's a business networking platform, if you will. But I think that immediate, this is what I do, and what do you want to buy it? It doesn't work most of the time.
No, because
you might get the 1 in 1,000 that is actually, I'm actually looking for that, and you're very, very lucky.
Well, the whiff that I get is you've not even asked me any questions to know whether or not it would be a solution to a problem that I might even have. You don't even know what problems I have. So, but you've gone ahead and sold me. It's like going into a shoe shop. You've not told them what you need, and they're just like, do you want these heels? Well, no. I came in looking for trainers. What are you doing? So I think this adamant kind of attitude that I have comes from when I used to be an agency, and I was taught to sell in a really pushy, underhanded, sly kind of way, and I just didn't like it at all. And so now when I have a conversation, even if they say just have a good day, see you later, great to be connected, just leave them to it. You can pick something up at a later date, or eventually they might come back to you, who knows. But there's bloody millions of people on LinkedIn. You don't need to hone in on the one person that's ended the conversation. But I think for me, my sales approach is to approach people how you would like to be approached. And I think for me, it would be with respect, with some professionalism, because even if I am joking about, I've still got to be professional, and really kind of understanding that not everybody's going to want to speak to you. Not everybody wants what you're buying. And actually, even from that first message, no matter how non-salesy it is, they just may not want to speak to you. And that's okay too.
But I agree. I think it's about being sort of present rather than trying to sell. I think the content strategy, at least that you're taking, and it is a good strategy. I think it does work, but it's less I'm pushing sales onto someone. Obviously, there's that element there that they know what you do, and it's clear what you do. And when they're ready, or if they're in market, then they're going to come to you. I've had loads of people over the definitely the last year when I've been doing more content that they know I do things in digital marketing that eventually just come to me at different points of the year. I've had people where I started and I've sent them some stuff. Said, actually, I just saw this. This is what you're doing. This maybe might be quite cool for you. Said, actually, I'm not looking to do this now, but I might be in 3 or 4 months. They come back to me.
Exactly.
So, I think it's about being properly present and actually caring about their time and what they want to do, rather than I'm just trying to sell you something immediately, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And because I'm a recruiter, I think they automatically have this idea like, oh God, she's going to sell me something. I did have one guy once who, quickly tell you this and then we'll move on, but one guy once who I messaged, and he was lovely. I messaged him because he'd we'd connected, and he was a hiring manager, and so he was definitely, on the face of it, an ideal client. Anyway, I messaged him, and my first message there was no hi, there was no hello, how are you doing? Great to be connected, none of that. he put a post out about a staff holiday that they went on, took their staff and people and whatnot. And I said, let me know where you are and I'll come and hold your bags and grab your coffees for you or something like that. I was in like, I'm this sad loser who just wants to come on holiday with you. So he came back and we kind of back and forth for like a few messages and he was like, why don't you just hit me with it and tell me what you're selling? And I was like, I'm not trying to sell you anything. And he was like, you're a recruiter. You're always trying to sell me something. I said, I swear, I'm not trying to sell you anything. He was like, why don't you just tell me what you do? And I was like, no, now I'm not going to tell you. Now you're going to have to wait. Now you're going to have to wait. Yeah. So I said, I swear I was not here to try and sell you something. That was not me trying to, I wasn't trying to do something. I literally was just trying to make you laugh. And he was like, oh my God, this is the best conversation I've ever had because I thought you were trying to sell me something. I said, no. And then eventually we did start talking about work. And then eventually he told me everything that doesn't work in his business when it comes to recruitment. He was a leader. He was telling me how frustrated he was, how much they need a service like mine. And we left it at that. I didn't even say, let's jump on a call. Let me help you now that I know what your problem is. I just left it at that. And I think he thought, what kind of businesswoman is she? And then after a couple of weeks, he messaged me and he said, I just want to make sure, I'm just checking in to see how your day is going. And I was like, yeah, my day's great. How's yours? And he was like, yeah, it's good. I just wanted to wish you, I think it was a Friday. And he was like, I just wanted to wish you a great weekend. And I was like, thanks, you too. But I still, to this day, have never sold him anything. Now, there might be people who are listening to this who would be like, you've just missed an opportunity. That's me building the relationship with somebody who I already know is on the offensive and I already know is expecting me to just pitch slap him, which I don't want to do. So I know that this is somebody that I want to tread carefully with. And I know I'm front of mind because he's messaged me when he didn't need to. So if he needs me and they're in a position to part with money, I'm probably going to be the person that they come to. I think that natural, organic way of speaking rather than selling, communicating rather than selling mentality has definitely helped me. Definitely one thing that I learned in 2024.
Yeah, I suppose if you've got a lot of people where you've got those relationships like that one, then things will naturally come
I'm not saying everybody's like that, but that's a prime example of somebody who thought I was slithering away in his DMs and he was ready to just tell me where to go. Yeah, he was ready to, I could tell he was ready to tell me, like, I'm not interested. And then that would have been the end of the conversation if I had done it. He probably would never have messaged me again, whereas now we speak every few weeks. But I can see something building, you know? And that's more important to me personally as a solo business owner. Those kinds of conversations are more important to me than, all right, he's asking me to sell him, so I'll just sell him. And that's not what I want to do. So that's my take on it anyway.
Perfect. The last area I kind of want to touch on with you is technology within the business. I know it's obviously quite a big subject at the moment. A lot of businesses sort of innovating with AI and whatnot. So first of all, what have you used so far, or are we not quite there yet? Where are we in terms of...
So as I was saying before, like I'm definitely not the most tech savvy person. But there are certain things that I need to and want to implement in 2025 that's going to make my life easier. So I want to have a lot more automation in place with my content creation, because it's a huge portion of my day every single day is scheduling, automation, AI, creating content prompts, content ideas. I don't want anything writing content for me. Like, that's not something I will ever want to do. I love the process of writing. And this is why I don't have like a ghostwriter or anything. I love the process of writing. But I think there is a lot of room for AI, such as ChatGPT and other things that can make your content journey or your experience creating and posting content a lot easier and a lot simpler, because it's really hard to stay on top of. And even if it's just like editing materials, like in the last few days, it's everywhere right now. This office is a mess. But I invested in some like gadgets. So like I've got a new tripod. I've got like a new light because I hate this ring light. I've got some microphones and just things that are going to improve. But then in terms of like software, I want to have some things in there. A friend of mine who gave me some ideas on automation. So she was saying things like Dripify for like automating your LinkedIn and connecting with people and DMing people. It's a bit like having a VA or a PA, but in an AI fashion.
Essentially, you can use tech to almost be like having junior members of staff around you. You've got like a little project manager over here. We've got a junior copywriter potentially just to
I
give
need
you
that.
ideas.
I definitely need that for I need that for 2025. Again, this is coming back to changing my work style, working a bit smarter, and having things in place that are just going to make my life easier. It's not cutting corners. Technology, like, you've got to get with the program, Taq. And I need to put some of those things in place. Right now, if you're asking me what do I have, not a great deal. Not a great deal. I'm such a dinosaur. Honestly,
good a time as any to start looking at it and improving on it anyway. I think last year's a funny one for AI because it's obviously took quite a big jump forward, and I think it's a lot more mainstream now. A lot more people are getting involved with it. Not everybody's going to jump on it immediately, but now beginning of 2025, it sounds like your mindset's right in terms of how can I structure things, how can I automate, how can I make things work better for me. Especially in a small business, to allow you to kind of, instead of just being yourself, you can have like maybe it's like the equivalent of having maybe 4 or 5 people around you. So it just makes life a lot easier and push things forward.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think AI, it feels like it almost came out of nowhere. It feels like it wasn't a thing, and then all of a sudden it was like, are you using it? Are you using it? Are you using it? You should be using it. It's good. And I was a bit like, well, what is AI? And then, I've always known what AI is, but I didn't understand how people were using it until I started using it. I was like, actually, this is pretty cool. And now I will use, like, ChatGPT, for example. I will use that to get, like, stats and facts on recruitment, industry materials, trends, and kind of improving my knowledge so I can kind of pluck that out and include it in content. It can even write a piece of content for you if you really want it to. Just tell it your ideas, right? And you could do that if you want to. But like I say, I like the idea of writing content. But I think what I need to focus on is going to be things like managing my calendar, managing my LinkedIn activity, because it's not just posting and creating content. It's all the activities, the engaging, the DMs, responding to the DMs. There's stuff out there that does all this for you. And I love the idea of that. And I didn't actually know until somebody told me. LinkedIn, I think automating a lot of my LinkedIn activity is going to save me a lot of time and probably help me become a lot more efficient in the way that I work. But also I want to spend time building these other services. And so I have to be able to, give up my time somewhere else. So if I can give this to tech and I can focus on this over here, and then eventually I can give that to tech and build something else. And that's kind of how I see the rotation now. Whereas last year or year before, or historically, I've always thought, what do you need all that for? Like, you've got a pad and a pen, you've got a calculator, you've got a laptop. What do you need all that for? Well, then I burnt out, and that's when I was like, actually, that's why I need it.
It's about efficiency more than anything, so you can focus your time on things within the business that you don't really want.
It's just smart, isn't it? It's just smart. So right now, not a lot. But talk to me at the end of this year and hopefully it will be a different story altogether.
I think that's as good of a place as any to stop, because I think what the idea from here would be is if we check in about 9 months from now to see where you are, see how things are pushed forward using tech and using different things within the business. I think that would be a great next check-in with you, Taq.
Yes. Thank you so much. This has been lovely, and I appreciate you inviting me. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Taq.